This is kanji in Danzan-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. I'm your host, George Arrington. Well, we're continuing our look at the kanji that are contained within the Kiai no Maki of Danzan-Ryu. And here in part 4, we're going to be looking at the knife defense techniques. This is the scroll that was given by Professor Okazaki to his students once they achieved the second rank, second degree black belt level, which was considered the instructor level. And it contains what's called the catalog of the Danzan-Ryu system, or at least part of the catalog of the Danzan-Ryu system. And that catalog is called the Moku-Roku. In this series of videos, we're looking at the Kiai no Maki, and here's what it looks like inside this particular scroll. In this video, we'll be looking at these techniques. So here we are in Professor Okazaki's dojo once again. We'll pull out the Kiai no Maki board, and I'll just highlight where the Tanto no Maki is. It's right there. And it consists of 4 techniques. So here are the knife techniques. We'll look at an overview of all of them. First off, we have the name, which is Tanto. And as I mentioned in previous video, that little circle is a period. In other scrolls, we see the full name Tanto no Maki written out, but in this scroll it just says Tanto with a period. First technique in this section is called Hibara Hazushi. Then comes Katate Hazushi, and we may remember that there is another technique called Katate Hazushi that's found in the Tessen section. Then we see Tsukomi Hazushi, and finally Ryote Dome. Okay, so what about this name, Tanto? What does that mean? Well, here's the characters for Tanto, and we see the little period there. Tan by itself means something that is shortened. And to means a sword. By the way, this particular character may also be pronounced katana or katana if you're pronouncing it in a Western accent. Katana is the samurai sword. So here's the stroke order for these kanji. So let's pull out the laser pointer and take a look at how these look. So it goes 1, then 2 goes straight across, 3 goes straight across, 4 comes sweeping down like so, 5 like so, and then 6, and then we draw a little mouth here, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. Next we write the character for sword, which comes straight across and then sweeps down and slightly to the left with a hook on the end, like so, and then 2 comes this way. So that's to or katana. Here's a picture of a tanto. This is a traditional one that has the handle that resembles the handle of the traditional samurai sword. So that is a tanto. It's actually a longer tanto, not quite wakizashi, but that's tanto. A more modern style of tanto might look like this, and it has a rounded pommel, and that can be used as a helmet crusher. And you notice that on this katana, I mean on this tanto, and on a lot of modern tantos, you have this angled front. So that's an interesting feature. Usually, in practice, students use a wooden tanto, and it might look something like that. The next technique is called Hibara Hazushi. This character, he, means spleen. This character we had seen before as hara in Hara-age Ishiwara, or Harage Ishiwari, from the first set of techniques. Here we use bara because it works well with the preceding sound. He hara would not sound correct, so we say he bara, and that, if you remember, means the abdomen. Now, when you take these two together, hibara, that usually indicates the side of the body. So this is a technique done against the side of the body. And then we have the hazushi, which we had seen before, that we said would mean removal. But I'm also going to say escape here, even though it doesn't literally mean that. It's what you do in this technique. Okay, so let's look at the strokes for this. By the way, you probably noticed that both he and hara have this structure here, and if you remember, that means can mean moon or month, but in this context means flesh or meat. So it goes 1, 2, and kicks up, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And by the way, you should be, as we go along here, you should be thinking about these pieces of the kanji. This right here, without the other strokes, means sun, and we see that also over here. So let's do that again. 6, 7, 8, 9, and then there's a stroke coming down through here for 10. And then 11, we draw across, and 12 come down. For hara, you go 1, 2, kick, 3, 4, then you come up here and go 5, 6, we draw another sun, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then we draw this, 11, 12, and 13. Now hazushi we have seen before. We'll draw this part, 1, 2, 3, and as a mini quiz, do you remember what this represents? Okay, if you said crescent moon, that's exactly right. And then 4 and 5, and that's hazushi. Now, in the human body, just wanted to point out these two body parts. The spleen is this part right in here. Let's see, right in here. This is the spleen. And the hara, although that's not a Western medicine body part, in Eastern medicine, they say the hara is generally in the lower abdomen, so kind of in this area. So together, the spleen and the hara indicate the side of the body. Of course, in doing the techniques, you do both sides of the body, even though the spleen is seen on the left side here. The technique can be done, of course, on both sides. All right, here's Katate Azushi. We've seen this exact name before. And Kata, if you recall, means one-sided. We've thought about that as single, but it really means one-sided, one of a pair. Te means hand, and then hazushi means removal or escape. The stroke order for this is as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4 goes straight across and then down. This looks like a person kind of kneeling and presenting a candle. If you want to do word pictures like that, that's a good way to remember kanji. Okay, then te goes 1, then 2, 3, and then 4 with a kick at the end. Okay, now we have our crescent moon. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5, and that is hazushi. As you may recall, I mentioned that this character also means outside. Sometimes this character is pronounced gai, and that's where we get the word gaijin, or foreigner, somebody from the outside. Next we have tsukomi hazushi, and this has an interesting combination of characters. Tsuki means thrust. Komi, you may remember from an earlier technique, means crowded. But when we take them together like this, it means thrust into. And as you see here, we use the little tsu character to double the consonant that's on the K here. So tsukomi, tsukomi is how this is pronounced. So if you say it as tsukikomi, it's not incorrect, but it's not as frequently used that way. So it's better to say tsukomi. And then again we have hazushi. Okay, the stroke order for this, for tsuki, is 1, 2, 3. We have our little looks like a pot lid, but it's got like an arrowhead on there. We'll do that again. 1, 2, 3, and hook. Then 4 and 5. Now 5, you come down and across with a little curve upward at the end. Then you draw this figure, 6, 7, and 8. And by itself, this character means, it was pronounced tai, which means big. And you can think of it as a person standing with their arms held at each side like that, indicating something is big. So, but in this case, it's just part of the tsuki character. And then komi, you see, starts 1, 2. This part by itself is pronounced iri, which means to enter in. And then we go 3, and then we draw this funny stroke here, which goes over, across, back, and across like that. Almost looks like a 3. And then 5 is this sweeping thing underneath. Typically, people will do 4 and 5 together. They'll go da da da, and then like so. All right, so that's komi. And once again, we have hazushi. 1, 2, 3, and you're going to tell me this means what? This means a crescent moon, right? And 4 and 5. And that is tsuki, or tsukomi hazushi. I caught myself doing it. Tsukomi hazushi. So the last technique in the knife section is called ryote dome. And here are the kanji for it. Ryo is the kanji that means both. And you notice that it has, this says Ryo, and then this is the U sound, and so that means extend the O sound, extend the vowel sound here. So it's Ryo slightly. The way that you indicate that when you write it in English is to put a line over the top of the particular vowel like that. And this particular line up here is called a macron. A macron. So whenever you see the line over top of either the O or the U, then you call that a macron. All right, continuing. The next character is te, and that means hand, but in this context, we're saying hands, plural, because we're talking about both hands. So taken together, these two characters mean with both hands, and then you do something. So ryote, with both hands, what are you doing? Well, you're doing the tome, or dome in this case, and that means to stop. So you're using both hands to stop the knife attack in a particular manner. So here's the stroke order. You go 1, 2, and 3. So you create this container, 1, the top first, then you create this container, 2, 3, goes over and down with a hook on the end, and then you draw what looks like the mountain character, which goes 4, 5, and 6, like so. So that's Ryo. Te is what we've seen before. 1 comes from right to left, and then 2 and 3 go left to right. 2, 3, 4, little hook. And then tome, or dome, is, we've seen that before. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do it with our memory device here. Here's your policeman. Here's his hand that he's holding out. Here's the pedestrian who's waiting to cross, and that's the crosswalk. So that's Ryo te dome. By the way, you probably are wondering, what's this mess right here? Well, it turns out that in this particular scroll, whoever was writing it made a boo-boo. And they said, oh, shucks, or something, and scratched it out. So you can see that they've actually scratched out what they wrote and then corrected it over here. So I guess he didn't have an eraser for his ink pen or his ink brush, and had to basically scratch it out. My book, Mokoroku and Kaiden Sho, the official documents of Danzan-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, contain translations for several different scrolls and some other documents. What I did in this book was I took a picture of each section of the scroll, showed the actual picture, and then showed the printed version of the kanji, because sometimes the printed or the handwritten kanji are difficult to read. And so I show the printed version. I show how to pronounce that in Japanese if you wanted to just read it in English, and then the translation into English of each of those sections. So it's a very detailed book, very detailed translation. I hope you'll pick up a copy at Amazon. Well, I thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next in this series on Kiai no Maki. See you then.